For the name of discovery, we must explore, Ensign.
Been scared.
Ha ha! That's perfectly normal, my boy. Just squeeze your eyes shut as we journey through the Lion's Den. Okay, well, I'm going to tell the story of the Rift on Rubifoam, or just tack that off. It was called Rift on Rubifoam. All right, so Rift on Rubifoam takes place during Sasquatch and the Scorpion. Now, Sasquatch and the Scorpion is a time travel story, but it also takes place along a period of span of time of, say, like 40 years. So in an earlier part, a part that occurred earlier on in the timeline, Lee, who is the director of Cybertown, now that is an organization so you had the department, which was in Hostage 100. After some time, they refocused their attention on space, on the multiverse. And so therefore, they needed an expert on the multiverse, in which they had gotten Dr. Van Erickson, otherwise known as the department agent, Agent Bigfoot. Now, so Lee, who's the director of Cybertown, he recalls a flashback in which him and the agents of Cybertown, while they're out on the mission, since he is a director, but yet he's going out into the field, he has a little gauntlet. Every Cybertown agent has one of these gauntlets, in which shows a hologram, and that's how they communicate. So in the scene, him and the Cybertown agents, they're out exploring a dead patch, as they call it. The Dimension Surfers of the time, because the Dimension Surfers has gone through many lineups, and so this particular lineup, they go ahead and they call Lee. The Dimension Surfers are another. They're also employed by Cybertown, and so Zweichi, he calls them up, and Lee tries to talk them through their mission while they're on their mission. And in the Dimension Surfers mission, they are in the moon dance floor, in which there's a particular area of the moon dance floor, which is like a highway or a path. And so the Dimension Surfers are on this path, and since there's so many bends and loop arounds, don't really know if they're chasing ogres on hoverbikes or the ogres on hoverbikes are chasing the Dimension Surfers. And so in that particular scene, you're pretty much looking at it through the point of view of Lee, because this is Lee's flashback. But Rift on Rubifoam is going to tell the story of the Dimension Surfers and what they're doing before that scene and after that scene. How did they end up tangling with these ogres on hoverbikes? Where did the ogres on hoverbikes come from? And so Rift on Rubifoam is going to tell that story. In this first installment of Rift on Rubifoam, it is called Orb-Manifested People. You're like, well, what's an Orb-Manifested People? Well, you'll learn. Just listen to the story. Okay, so the Dimension Surfers are just out there doing their thing, you know? And above Zweichi's gauntlet appears a transmission from Lee, but it's not one they're particularly familiar with. Usually, Lee will just appear as himself, his hologram, and talks to them as he is, like you're conducting a telephone call. But this one is a little odd. It's just a square, and in the square is a very rudimentary 8-bit graphic, if you will, picture of Lee. And these words scroll across as if this is what he's saying. This is his message he's delivering, but this is also what he's saying. And as the words scroll across, scroll across enough for a few words, because the text of this is also very blocky, like the picture of Lee, and it's fairly large. So they're scrolling across, and they say, Lee says, "There's a rift on Rubifoam. We're in a dead patch, so you're on dispatch." And Voltage, of course, he's the one that points it out, of all people. He's thinking the same thing we're thinking. Why does that look like an old school video game? And Poltergeist says to him, he asks him, "Well, how do you know what video games are?" Voltage says, "Well, on Rigel, we played them all the time." Lee has now told them that there's a rift on Rubifoam and they must go check it out now. A rift. You see here, it's the map of the Moon Dance Floor. Originally, I was to have a map in between the spine and the front page, or the cover page, the binding, and the front page of a map. You'll see in some other books, so there's a map. There's a map in this one. This is Out of Oz. This is the 4th book in the series. As you can see here, like, there's a map like that. You've seen many books that has done that. So evidently that's a map of Oz, especially in the time frame that Out of Oz takes, because the Wicked series expands over more than just the events of the original movie, but kind of a big old timeline, kind of from the other books that L. Frank Baum had written. So anyways, eventually there's going to be an edition where it'll have that in there, but under the tools that I had at the moment, I wasn't able to do that very well. I tried. So you'll be able to see it on here, those who are watching the video. If you're listening to the podcast, then be sure to check out. You could check out the video, but also there's different files and resources upon the many places that Through the Lines is on, like Facebook and AlanDLines.com. Got these pyramids at the bottom. That's where the dimensions come from. They kind of flow out like almost like a mist, or like water, and that's the Moon Dance Floor there. And in between these areas are each dimension. And so since it is like water, well, sometimes, you're out on a river, it's very rapid waters. Well, it'll slap up against the wall, the surface wall, and it may splash up on the surface every once in a while. So that's kind of like what a rift is. If you're looking at the Moon Dance Floor like a river, and it splashes up on the surface, which is the dimension, and then what do you get there? You get a little puddle or whatever, a splash of water, and that's a rift for you, kind of like a portal. And the people who live in that area where it splashed upon, some of them may not can't even fathom the concept of the multiverse and dimensions and Moon Dance Floor and whatnot. They just live their simple lives. And here you got this big old puddle-shaped whirlpool or something that's going on. And this particular story, the rift is like a curtain. And we'll get to that here in a second. So the dimension surfers, they go to the area. Poltergeist Light, he has a rift tracker on his hologram. So he tracked down the coordinates to which this rift was. All he told him was that the rift was on Rubifoam. Rubifoam is a whole planet. So Poltergeist Light, on his rift tracker, he tracks to where it is. So they go there, as fast as they can on their surfboards. And a lot of geography on Rubifoam. The natives there are called Hermites because the planet is originally called Herm, and it renamed to Rubifoam sometime down the line. So a Hermite, native to the planet, they pretty much look like a 6-foot humanoid ant. And what do ants do? They like to colonize in tunnels and make mounds and climb up trees and sometimes get in your house and crawl across your long boxes or something. But anyways, so a Hermite, basically a giant ant, what they would do on Rubifoam is they would take these giant trees that were like the size of redwoods, even larger, like 4 times larger than a redwood. They would hollow them out, or they would create tunnels through the system, and those tunnels would go down deep underground, uh, even maybe even deeper than as tall as the tree was, and all sorts of tunnel systems. And in front of every single tree in which a hermite colony had hollowed out is a big old patch of dirt. Now there may be grass and other structures, other things in nature around the tree, but there will always be that dirt patch. And they kind of live and tunnel out of that area as well. And so they go to this area in Rubifoam, and sure enough, over there's a hermite tree with a dirt patch in front of it. But over here in this area, see, you kind of got the hermite tree off to behind them and a little towards the left. And so if you turn this way, so like, okay, so it's behind them. So in front of them, here it is, the rift. And in which I said in this situation, the rift is like a curtain, like a stage theater curtain, just real tall and wavy. And it's just the oddest thing. It's light reflecting off of it. It's almost like it isn't there, but when the light hits it just right, they can see the shimmer and the folds of the curtain. So obviously they know that that's the rift, and that's where they have to go to. So they go up through the rift and emerge on the other side. Maybe on their first encounter of a rift, they may have been freaked out and didn't know what was going on. But at this point of the game, they're they're veterans of the whole dimensional travel bit. Uh, but it still gets them every single time. They'll go through the rift, and behind them is the land and the area in which they had came from. And then on the other side, it's like at a certain position, they could still see the continued area of what is behind them, but they turn just so slightly and they can see the new area, the area of this other dimension in which they had slipped into, because that's what a rift is. I'd said that the water from the moon dance lord splashed upon the surface of the dimension. And what is a moon dance lore other than just a webbing in between dimensions? So yeah, it's a piece of moon dance lore there in the rift, but it's so thin and shallow, like a splashed puddle would be, that the moon dance lore is not very thick, and you automatically go into another dimension. Well, not automatically, but you don't have to go very far to get there. And so as they're standing here and they turn just a certain way, they see it's like a peninsula over behind them into the other dimension which they came from. It's a whole flat out land. But here, and as they look from still in the original dimension, if they look into the rift, or they look in past the rift, the land will just keep going. But as they slip into this other one, they see this peninsula, and they kind of see the country in between them and the peninsula ahead of them, and it's this bunch of winding paths, and up far ahead at the edge of the peninsula is a bunch of brick walls just crumbling, and looks like it might have formed some kind of structure, maybe some kind of gate before, but now this is just ruins. So they're approaching forward, and as they get even closer on the winding paths, they can see all sorts of beings and people. Some they had encountered before in their travels, and some they had never seen before in their lives. So as they're getting closer, they see a kind of a dip in the bend. It's almost like a greeting area of the path from where they are. They see a bunch of round balls, and as they get even closer, they see that these round balls are riding steeds, and as they get even closer, they see that these steeds aren't horses but llamas. And so in the meantime, these round balls, they're watching them. They're watching these strange people come in on surfboards through this curtain that they've been watching all day. They're actually people. They're just round balls. They got a face on the surface of the ball, and then sticking out our arms and legs, kind of like an M&M. They're all sorts of different colors. And the black one of the group, he kind of has an attitude, and he's like, I don't know what these people are, but I'm ready to take them on. I will fight them, and I will protect this area. While the others are like, no, let's just check them out and see, because they may be good and everything. But the yellow one, is brave and adventurous as he is, he has Black's back. And so the dimension surfers get close enough. And the black orb, let me get to this area right here in my notebook. Where have I written this down? Obviously he's got a rebellious, cocky kind of attitude, and the way he looks, he's kind of like a cowboy. He's got kind of a hat indented into his orb, and then on his ankles there are spurs, and the feet are pointy, and he's got a pair of what looks like pistols in his hands, with big old barrels in his hands, in the palm of the piece. And as the dimension surfers get close enough, he pops one of them off, and it's like it's a poof, a shadow, almost like there's a character in Sasquatch and the Scorpion. His name is Xander, or Shadow, and his powers is he creates these, and they're actually portals to the moon dance floor. But this black orb here, he's not as strong as Xander is. So the shadows that he's puffing out at them, they don't particularly take them to the moon dance floor, because, like I said, he's not that powerful. But it does take them to a little pocket dimension, just something out of the way. And it doesn't last very long. It'll so he shoots at Zwei-Chi, say, and it puffs out of his chest. And it doesn't even take the whole body sometimes. It'll just shimmer out and then go back in. And he's like, what was that? Like a minor inconvenience? And then he pops off his pistol again. And this time he gives it a little more oomph and voltage. It takes his whole entire body and it poofs him. And then he goes up over on the other side of the yellow orb. Now the yellow orb, he's got sun powers. Like I said, his personality is brave and he's adventurous, but he's got his powers. Like the black orb has shadow powers, the yellow orb has sun powers, and with sun powers he can manipulate the temperature. So he reaches out to voltage, in which the black orb had teleported him there, and he raises the temperature up just slightly where it's uncomfortable for voltage. He's like, I'm getting a little sweaty in here, and it's not really concentrating too well. And then he can adjust the brightness of the area, so he makes it a little brighter. And voltage, he's getting sweaty and he can't think, and he can't see very well because it's really bright. And then a yellow orb, he can, another one of his powers, his sun powers, is he can do little flares, so he flares up at him. And so voltage, not able to see or concentrate, he gets attacked. What the hell? Well, voltage is a light bender. Now he wears a mask. It's a wooden mask, and it's shaped like a Millie's head. Now Millie's head, see, light benders, they pretty much resemble humans. They got same proportions of us and whatnot. Now a Millie, they're kind of the stereotypical of what you would think an alien was. Like in the 90s, you would see on those posters and everything, and Roswell, whatever. And they had the diamond-shaped heads, and then their eyes were huge and white. Well, that's basically what a Millie is. And so Zwei-Chi, he's a Millie. And what they can do, a natural ability for Millie, is to manifest orbs. Just they concentrate enough, and then it turns from it's a material, and the substance of it is light, but it solidifies just enough that it's like a shell. And usually, millies, they've created all the infrastructure of the planet out of these orbs, highways, buildings, houses, but there's some that are, more the protector types, the military, and some of them move on to be orbitrons, and which what Zweichi is, and they use those orb manifestations more like weapons. They can build like blades and bow and arrows and all sorts of kinds of weapons out of them. So Voltage, he wears a mask that makes him look like a Millie. Upcoming story I have is the apprentice of the hero, and which will explain a little bit more about why Voltage is dressed like a Millie. I will tell you that Millies and Lightbenders are kind of rivals. They don't get along very well. So kind of imagine why Voltage would be dressed like that. But he is an ally of Zweichi because they're on the same team. Poltergeist Light, he is a poltergeist, and what they do in this universe is they can possess people. They're intangible, like a ghost, and it can fly into people and manifest them, kind of like Deadman from DC Comics. And it'll fly into them and possess them and able to take over their bodies and whatnot. And then the poltergeist will emerge back out of the body, and the more the malicious ones, of course, would maybe kill the body or something. But they would fly out of the body, and then they would have an aura. They would have a piece of their aura, and therefore they could shapeshift into that person they just flew into. The black and yellow orb, they're continuing. They're fighting these dimension surfers. At least these two, because they're a little afraid of strangers and they want to just protect their area. Like he shoots an orb at the black one. The black one falls back, and the yellow one, just ready to be by his side and have his back. He blasts another flare at Zweichi, and Poltergeist like pushes him out of the way, and he goes into his body. And Zweichi, he shifts that flare just so much out of the way with his, because he's got an emerald. What powers the millies, their structures, like they can build a little weak orb, or they can put a gem inside their foreheads and it'll get certain qualities. So Zweichi, he has an emerald one. He has a special Telgen emerald. If you read some of Hostage 100, you'll learn a little bit about the Telgen race and their gems. And the apprentice of the hero will explain that a little bit more. And why this particular emerald in Zweichi's forehead is very important. So the emerald is the speed gem, and so he shoots out a piece of a speed orb, and it knocks the flare out of the way, and then Poltergeist, like, he's in the black orb, and this. Sometimes he uses it to possess, to maybe fight the other people, fight the other attackers. But he knows he can see the other orbs and how they're trying to stop their fellow orbs. And he can see that it's really only these two guys and these other orbs. He just needs to de-escalate the situation. And so he kind of stiffens Black Orb and kind of puts him in his place. And Black Orb, he's fighting and everything. He's trying to move, but he's got this being possessing him, and eventually he just gives up. And so Poltergeist Light, he flies out, and he says to him, I don't know if y'all think we're a threat or anything, but we're not, and we want to figure out what's going on here.